Yes, 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 family. We are back on the channel for another episode of How It All Works. It is a Monday, and you know Mondays is our day where we jump in this thing and we figure out how it all works. Today we have a panel of audio engineers, and we're going to be discussing what their perspective is in the entire music production process, whether it be live, studio, whatever. What do they see from their vantage point? And hopefully you're ready for the discussion, ready for the conversation. So thankful that you're able to join us. These are generally speaking, these are people who are behind the scenes, who do not jump in front of the camera or jump on the microphone. They're usually setting the levels, but we brought them out for you guys to be able to get that perspective and to benefit from their years of experience and expertise. So without any further ado, let's get to it. Here we are. All right. I'm just going through and making sure everybody's unmuted. Gentlemen, thank you so much for, again, lending your time and your expertise to our audience who largely don't understand the audio engineer's perspective. And so we're looking to learn from you today. We're looking to hear from you the different things that make it all work together, the different things that you do and the vantage point that you have that is unique in terms of the entire music production process, whether it be live, whether it be studio, whatever it is. We're so glad to have you today. We're going to take a second right now to just invite those who are watching to share the stream. We know in the comments, you know how we do. If you're here because Everett Gillon is your guy, then why not say that in the comments? If you're here because you used to take piano lessons at the Maitland Conservatory, then let us know. We want to know. We recognize that the people who are here have a following and they have supporters, and so we want to make sure that you guys are represented in the comments as well. But of course, take a moment right now to share the stream and encourage those who may not be with us yet, especially since we are at a different time. This is our second week at this new time slot. We wanted to take a moment to just share the stream and let folks know that we are live and the discussion is happening right here. Right here. Okay, so now we're going to do some introductions. And generally, I go right around the room. Marlon, I go right around the room. So that means I'm coming to you first. We'll go right around the room. So Marlon, Daniel, come on in. Tell us a little bit about what you do at MRD Sound and your relationship to this whole music production world. I've got something I can throw on screen for you, but I'm going to let you speak for a second first.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlon Daniel. I am the owner of MRD Sound Productions, and what we strive to do at MRD Sound is to try to provide high-level, modern sound to anyone who comes to us. We specialize pretty much in house of worship audio, and currently I am the audio contractor at the Alpha Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia. That's my primary, my beloved client. And so what we provide is audio services, production support, backline support.
Backline.
And so I mix concerts, provide. I don't particularly do a lot of consulting, but definitely try to help churches and small organizations to realize the excellence that they have within through audio.
Thank you. Marlon, we welcome you to the panel. We welcome you to the show. And again, our unique thanks to all of you for jumping in here. We're going right next to you to LDB Trey, little drummer boy Trey. I had to ask him last week. I was like, what does LDB stand for? Because, it could mean something else. We want to make sure. we got to verify. Now, there is a tax for being on the show. There is a tax, and that tax is going to be that hat, Doc. I mean, we need that hat. I need that hat from you before this thing is done. Trey, tell them a little bit about yourself, and I have something I'm going to throw on the screen as well for you, but please tell them a little bit about yourself and how you approach the whole music production thing. I know you are also a part of the band, and you have that in your skill set, in your wheelhouse. But definitely tell them a little bit about yourself.
Man, well, I definitely drummer first. Definitely drummer first by choice. It's definitely some big shoes to be an audio engineer and to have friends around you, when you're on the road to say, hey, Trey, how does that sound? Or you get with a sound engineer that says, hey, can you help me get your band sound right? And that kind of stuff kind of started relaying to me in the church setting. So I started helping our sound engineer out at my church. And it turned from that to, can you come and help us do sound check? And then my pastor is, hey, how about I just bring you from behind the drums and you help us get the stream right and the service right. So, that's a little bit about myself. Definitely a big change, but I'm starting to kind of welcome that change a lot more now because it's a lot more relaxing, especially, not having to retain 6-7 songs per service.
Wow. But it's interesting to have both perspectives, right? I mean, so to come at the audio engineer seat from having been in the band, gives you a better appreciation, I would imagine, that to be able to do that position as well. Man, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. And then we go right below to Mr. Maitland, to Mario Maitland. Sir, thank you so much again for taking some time out this afternoon to be with us. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'm excited to be here. I mean, this it's always a great opportunity to be able to talk with other professionals about what it is that they do and talk about sound. I'm the owner of the Maitland Conservatory. I like to call us a modern arts institution. We not only teach all of the instrumental lessons, everything from piano to strings, the drums and all that, but we venture into what I call the modern arts. So we teach things like music production, mixing and mastering. We have a DJing program that's getting ready to start really soon. Our podcasting program is already going. We even have a live sound program that'll be coming up soon in conjunction with Huntsville Venue Group, being able to provide some advancement opportunities and outlets to people who are in the modern arts world to find some job opportunity as well. But we opened in 2012, and so we've been here now for 8 years. We're getting ready to open our second location in Mid-City, so look for us really soon out there near Top Golf. And we've got some programs also in the school. So the really cool thing is that we're able to get this modern arts education exposed to youth as young as fourth grade. So we're in several schools in the area. We've started a program in the Boys and Girls Club. We started the first ever Arts Technology Club at Jemison High School. Like I mentioned before, Sonny Herford and McNair. We did some programs in conjunction with Arts Huntsville, which shows how core education can be further taught with arts education and arts technology. So even at Oakwood, we're over the 4th through 8th grade orchestral program as well too. So education is definitely the side that I come from.
Yeah, and we need that vantage point. We need that vantage point, and we appreciate you being here and for sharing. Absolutely. I did not know you guys were going to have a location at Mid-City. That's good to know. That is good to know.
That'll be our new location.
You heard it here first, folks. Right. For all the Huntsville folks. I mean, this is Mid-City, Maitland Conservatory. That's cool. And again, that perspective, yes, you're an audio engineer, but you come at it from a completely different perspective than some of the others. And so we want to get that perspective as well. I think we're going to have some rich conversation today. Doc, my guy, Donnell, Josiah. Now,
I'm so glad to be here.
I'm trying my best not to go back and tell a few stories here because I'm trying to be good. Because we go back to engineering class in the science complex at Andrews University. I'm gonna leave it there. But man, Donnell, man, the first, literally, yeah. I can't even begin to start telling stories now. But I'm so glad that you're able to come. I'm so glad that you're able to share, and to join this conversation and lend your years of expertise and I know you have a passion for the craft. So talk to the folks a little bit about you yourself and a little bit about the ARC and I've got something I'm going to throw on screen as well for you.
Very well. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to not only share a little bit about myself, but share a little bit about ARC Recording Studio, some of my journeys, where I've been, and some of the projects I've worked on. But really who I am at my core, I'm really a musician. I'm a pianist first. I'm a solo pianist. I've now worked on 4 different records, spanning from 1993 up until my last record that came out in 2016. Working on some new music now as well. So I'm a producer, but I'm an engineer as well. As Kirk had mentioned, engineering runs through my blood. I have multiple, not only degrees in engineering, but my mind, my approach, the discipline of engineering is what really fuels my focus for music production. So I approach it with a focus on excellence. I approach music production with an eye on how can we make it as best as we can. Back in the 90s, when I was working with an older recording engineer, he said, you got one chance to cut it to glass. And back then, glass meant CDs. Right. So for me, I had to learn really quickly how to really get the craft, how to get the product, how to get, whether it's a DVD production that I'm working on or an audio project I'm working on, to get that done with excellence. So that has really been my driving force for how I approach music. And that extends also into the engineering realm. Our recording studio, we are a private-owned recording studio, and what we specialize in Christian music production. and we are mixed genre. So whether it's contemporary classical to jazz to Christian contemporary, or even whether it's calypso Christian or whatever,
Come on.
it just has to be Christian music, and we are on board to help move that project from conceptualization all the way to delivery. So when we look at App Recording Studio, we have separated our services into three core areas. One, audio recording services, and that is what most studio provide. You go, you stand before a mic, and you sing or you play, right? So that's audio recording services. But my sweet spot is where we get into the music production and the mixing and the mastering sections. So it really gets into the technicalities and how to use tools, which tool to use for what specific application, and then bringing the music to life with a musician's ear. So that's really what my focus is. How do we get musicians? How do we get Christian artists? How do we get the aspiring musician to take not only creative ideas, whether it's manuscripts, poems, or songs, and turn those songs into masterpieces? So whether it's working with producers, which we have worked with a number of different top shelf producers, or working with arrangers or other musicians, we're here to unite the art with the craft. And that's really what Art Recording Studio is all about.
Nice. Well, man, we appreciate that, man. It's interesting to catch that perspective as well. One of the things that we've seen over the last 2 weeks, as we've been doing the show, one with the voiceovers, there was a theme there where they were saying you need to be cognizant of what you are recording, because your voice will live on long after you. And
Absolutely.
again, last week with the music writers, they said, we have to make sure that what you put your name on, because your name is your name. It's your brand, but it's also your name. It's all you have. And so even with you, I like the distinction of saying Arc Recording Studios is for Christian music. It could be calypso, it could be all these different genres, but you specifically are working with Christian music, and I love that distinction. Man, Evert Gillon, last but not least, Evert Gillon, we want you to tell the folks a little about yourself. I'm also fighting myself from saying a story or two, but I'm going to leave it there. You did my wedding. I did my 40th birthday party, and everything in between. But yeah, no, Evert, talk to the folks a little bit about your background in terms of the music world and some of the things that you've done. And again, I'll put up on the screen something for you as well.
Okay. Well, my name is Evert Gillon. Grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, and I got into audio mainly out of curiosity. I am a tinkerer at heart.
Tinkerers Unite.
Tinkerers Unite. So, got involved because I really didn't want to sit in church, to be honest, and jumped in the booth with MacArthur Prince and started to learn the ropes then. Took it a step further when I left to go to college at Walla Walla. Worked there for a couple years, and then became the head of audio, responsible for full productions, everything related to productions for alumni weekends and student events. And then when I moved here to Baltimore, Maryland, got involved with audio at Miracle Temple, now Miracle City. One of the first events that I did at Miracle was the Breath of Life broadcast back in, I think, 2004. So started there.
Oh yes.
And I've been floating around, helping churches, various churches in the Maryland area, with their audio engineering and sound production. I work a lot with Marlon, with MRD.
Yeah.
And some other outfits here in Maryland. So
man, Evert, one of the things I thought was interesting is that series, I think it was Walter Pearson that was the speaker for that series back in Miracle Temple. That is on high rotation right now because of his recent passing. And so, because it was at our church and a lot of us were in the audience or somewhere on there, we've been getting a lot of calls like, hey, I saw you. Hey, I saw you. Hey, I saw you. I was like, man, this is how long ago, but it's back out there again. But again, it speaks to that same point that these productions, these things that you have a hand in, the work that God will enable you to to touch, it will outlive us, and it will stay there, and it'll bless people long after we are gone. So it's amazing, that kind of impact that you can have. And again, we want to hear that perspective. Something else you touched on, Everett, that I thought was interesting, and I want to make sure we're mentioning this for our audience as well, is that one of the things I get a chance to do every now and again is to speak to churches about making the pivot to online in this pandemic. And one of the things I constantly encourage them to do is to mobilize this untapped army that we have of youth who are looking for creative ways to express themselves, to get involved. And sound and audio engineering, music, these are areas that we know for a fact, and audio, and of course production, so live streaming, videography, camera work. All of these are areas that we know that they speak that language naturally. They're not digital immigrants. They're digital citizens. They don't need a green card for this stuff. So they live here. Man, listen, so folks, you've already heard from the panel a little bit about themselves, a little bit of their background and some of the things that they do. What I want to do right now before we dive into our conversation is to give you a sneak peek of what we're going to have next week. Just to put it right here, right at the beginning, and we'll probably throw it in there somewhere else toward the end. But yeah, the big three is next week: social media, PR, and branding. The big three, and we've got a panel that, let me tell you, pound for pound, they're some of the best. And so there's an Instagram specialist on there. There's a Facebook specialist on there. There's people who deal directly with Twitter and LinkedIn. So man, they are going to be telling us all the different things, how we can optimize our social media and ensure that we're not getting caught by the algorithms and being pushed further down, which is what you don't want to have happen. So join us next week for that panel. The first question that I want to throw to this illustrious panel, the first question, and it's a broad one and anybody can take it, is this one, the mechanics. We want to talk a little bit as we start out about the mechanics of the audio engineer, the sound guy, the studio role in the music production process. Again, we're giving people the perspective of your role, what you do. So what are some of the things that most people are not aware of that come out of your role in these processes, whether it be recording or if it's a live production or if it is a media production of some sort? I always chuckle to see, like, all right, who's gonna go first? Who's gonna dive in? Who's gonna dive in?
I can get started if you want. I see the engineer's role both in studio and live as being a role that really brings together not only creative but also on the performance side as well. So when we think about the live sound engineer, he's looking to replicate what was done on some previously recorded music or something that was conceptualized by some artists. So when you look at their job and when you look at the work that I will do in the studio, it's all creative. It's all about bringing some form of music from a manuscript, an idea, and bringing that into fruition. And then having that vision be brought to life when you share that with a larger audience. So from my perspective, a recording studio engineer, my perspective is some of the things that you don't see is the engineer is really a magician. If you heard some of the raw cuts that are recorded, the multiple takes that are attempted, right? Even I call them bloopers. But when the finished product is done, when the vocal comps are done, when the tunings are done, when the band has done its 15th take, then that's what we have fallen in love with. But you don't see what's under the hood. You don't see the multiple attempts at failure. And I tell folks this all the time. Don't be afraid to attempt something different just for sake of being fearful of failing. Because sometimes the gem of your product comes out by your willingness just to attempted in the first place. So there are times someone may attempt a vocal run, and they will look back at themselves and look at the take and say, "Wow, did I do that?" Or
Wow.
someone may do something like, for example, I was working with Mohorns, and the producer, his name is Marvin Thompson, and he was working on a horn arrangement, and he was on the fly. And there were a couple of takes where he looked back at the guys and said, "Man, that sounded pretty hot." Right? and that's what happens when you are not afraid to take the risk, when you're not afraid of failure.
Right.
And that goes from the musician standpoint. It also goes from the lead vocal standpoint, and it also goes as well when you're looking at BGV stackings as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess I'll chime in a little bit on it since you came from that perspective, which, I mean, that was an excellent description and explanation. I have nothing else to add to that. So I'll come from the educational standpoint again. As the engineer, a lot of times it's important for you to understand the gear that you have as well too, and how it works. What's the proper chain to use, on a certain type of vocal? Mm-hmm. What's the proper chain to use on a certain type of instrument? For example, I see a lot of times that people go out and they buy the most expensive gear, not knowing truly what it does or missing pieces in it. Mercy. For example, the preamp, somebody will go get a microphone and then they'll go get a decent audio interface and they're wondering, well, I'm not getting a lot of signal out of my audio interface. So I'm just going to really just boost that input gain up, and I'm bringing this noise floor up at the same time, which is giving me all kinds of things on the inside of my signal. Maybe I could go and get a preamp, a warm audio preamp, or a Tone Beast Black, or yes, you got your Avalons and all those things as well too. But if I'm going to get this piece of gear, what is this piece of gear going to do for me? What will it do for this vocal? I see a lot of times too as well, people engaging something called a high pass filter or the low pass filter on their preamp, or if their interface comes with that type of selection as well too. Well, what if it's a person that needs a little bit more body in their vocal? If you always have that high pass filter engaged, then you're always not getting what you're looking for. Well, why am I not getting that fullness from the vocal? Well, you've got this high pass filter engaged right here. So you need to also understand the gear that you have and how it works in the chain, as well as you need to be able to apply it to different circumstances as well too. So that's just where I'm going with it from an educational perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll have to talk from the live perspective.
Yeah.
I think we figured it out now.
Yeah. We us live guys look at your studio guys and say, we can't stand you all sometimes. You have one chance, okay?
Yeah, you don't get one chance, right?
You have one chance to get it right, and so from the live engineer's perspective, I believe a lot of it has to do with preparation and understanding what you're about to do and what really planning in advance what your outcome is going to be. A lot of times nowadays, the expectation of a live engineer is literally to reproduce a record. If you're out there, if you're mixing Anthony Brown that day, it needs to sound like Anthony Brown's record, and that comes with a various amounts of challenges because in the studio situation, that's your place. Your room is tuned. Your room is your home. When you're a live engineer, sometimes you get into a particular space, and the space is not the most friendly space, and you still have to try to reproduce and provide the expectations that your client has. So I think in the live realm, we spend a lot of time, especially beforehand, trying to minimize as many things that can possibly go wrong when you get in there. I mean, you roll two 26-foot trucks into a venue, and you start interconnecting all these different things. I could tell you so many stories, right, Evert, about if you plug you plug one mic in incorrectly and you throw your entire chain off. If your patch is messed up, and you try, and so you find yourself sometimes with an inherent amount of pressure. Because and I think we're going to get to that later on when we talk about the audience and people. But the pressure to really try to be creative. You want to be creative, but you also have to be realistic with what you're working with, where you're working with. If you're in a room that doesn't like a lot of low frequency excitement, you can't go in there and just have like 15 subwoofers going at it, because that's going to be the end of your day.
Mercy.
So I think as a live engineer, we walk that thin line between creativity and practicality.
Yeah, and there's so much that plays into, the variables that play into what is practical, right? So I mean, even the techniques of the vocalist or the main talent that's on stage. Go ahead.
Like for instance, right, when we talk about practicality, one of my biggest challenges, and most live engineers would agree, is in the house of worship scene, pastors and monitors. I wish monitors were never invented, but they're there. Okay, and for some mistaken belief, pastors believe that the monitors are their personal PA system,
Right.
and in many cases needs to be louder than the house. And I've had situations where you have rooms that are not really conducive to a lot of energy. You have to really try to keep things under control, but your pastor's in the States, I want more. I need to feel it in my belly. And
mercy.
what happens then is that his request or his desire actually now starts to affect the enjoyment and the experience for everyone else in the room. So again, you're trying to work with the pastor and say, Pastor, I mean, I know you need to feel comfortable, but your monitors set to stun. It's not really going to help individuals in the room get a good experience. You have all this slap back. You have convolution and muddiness because of all this extra energy coming off the back of the stage. So again, walking between creativity and practicality.
Yeah. Anybody else want to speak to that? I do want to see if we can stay in that same vein, but I wanted to see if anybody else wanted to speak to that one.
No, I was going to say we're technically, the audio engineer is technically a bridge between the artists and the audience. We take their vision and help them recreate it on stage. In short, if you are off with the artist, or if you are off with the audience, the whole show is a mess, and everybody will let you know,
yes, they will.
It was garbage.
Yes.
It was garbage. So as everyone said, we walk a very fine line. As Donnell said, we're like magicians. We are literally like magicians, trying to make sure everything goes according to plan, because if one thing goes wrong, it cascades down.
Right. And sadly, you're not ever really noticed unless something is wrong.
See, that was it's almost exactly.
Yeah. The sound is good, and you're probably not going to get any compliments or anything. It's just you can't look for that, which sadly that's the way it is sometimes. So.
Let me play this clip real quick. This is you guys listen. Feel free to tear it apart. I'm not playing this to say this is an authority figure. I'm just playing this to say this is one person's perspective. Okay. Yeah. I wanted to share that. I thought that was an interesting perspective. There are some pieces there that I'm not certain. What are your thoughts on that?
The first thing that jumps out at me is, and so I have something that I do agree with, and something that I kind of disagree with.
Yeah.
What I do agree with is I do believe that the sound engineer is an extension not only of the band, but all musical presenters for that program.
Even
because
speakers.
The band is just one element of that. There are times you have an ensemble. There are times you have a group. There are times you have a choral presentation that doesn't have a band element. So the sound engineer got to take the faithful reproduction of musical intent. So whether it's an a cappella song, whether it's a choral ensemble, whether it's a quartet or sextet, whether it's a full live band, right? They should take that musical intent with the intensity that is intended on being delivered and make a faithful representation of that craft. Now, where I disagree is the comment about that if you walk away saying that the sound engineer was good, for lack of a better word, that means they were too present. And that's my interpretation of what he's saying. And I do believe that there's some elements of sound reinforcement that brings the music to life more than the artists themselves could do for themselves. For example, when you look at the frequency range of what a sub kick would do for the kick drum, right? The drummer can hit that kick as loud as it wants, but only the sub kick will get down to the depth of the frequencies in the sub frequency range to bring out the clarity of the intent of the kick.
Right.
So you should feel it, not necessarily hear it. And that's where I somewhat depart from what the gentleman had said, but but I do believe that the sound reinforcing spirit that he
Yes.
brings to that should be one that is transparent, one that faithfully reproduces as what I call the musical intent, whether it's whatever the craft is,
Right.
so that when you listen back to it, and not only in live sound, but also on broadcast sound as well,
Yes.
it sounds and reflect what was intended by the artist.
Yeah. They should be in lockstep. They should as they say, in pocket with
Absolutely.
what's happening. I mean,
I call it synchronicity.
Yeah. And that's these are critical pieces. And one of the things that I don't know, the novice or the average person sitting in the audience is aware of is how much of a big, huge part of that role the audio engineer plays. And those are some of the reasons why we wanted to have this panel of people like you. People that we don't normally hear from, but I think you guys have a lot to offer and have already shared a good amount. I do want to interject something, because he made 2 points. I only covered one of those points. The second point is being a de facto member of the music team. Now, he said this implicitly by saying a member of the band. But I extend that by saying he should also be an implicit member of the music team. So planning meetings, he should be available with input. Live pre-production shows, he should be available, present, and contributing to those meetings. Not just be handed a run sheet and say, here's what we got, go run with it. No, you are a de facto member of the team. I'm the minister of music at the Emmanuel Winkler Church, and one of the first things I did when I joined that team was I met with my audio team and said, brother, we are going to be joined at the hip. Yes, sir. Because we cannot do it alone. There's things that you're going to be doing that I rely on so that you can make us look good. Absolutely.
Okay. So it is that symbiosis. It is that working together in harmony where you don't see just the delineation of musicians and engineer, but you're seeing the unity of two different teams working together in concert harmony.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to that. I think just to kind of further extend that a little bit, and this is difficult to swallow sometimes, but not only as an audio engineer or a sound guy, whatever you want to call them, do you have to be a member of the music team and the band as well, but you also have to be in some ways a member of the audience as well too. You know, sometimes as audio engineers, we can get too technical. We can, the audience doesn't care if the compression ratio is dialed in just right, that I'm at 5-1 and my threshold is set here. All they care about, does it sound good and does it feel good? Right. So, sometimes we can be too technical for our own good, where it's like, I know that this is where I need to boost my frequency or cut my frequency. And yes, in technical truths, that may be it, but we can't get so focused on that. And let's be honest, sometimes, because I'm a musician as well too, and sometimes we allow that side of us to take over our engineering side as well too. We forget that the majority of the audience may not be musicians, so they may not be able to appreciate some of the things that we appreciate. We like hearing the drums, or we like hearing the keys a certain way, but what does it feel like to the majority of the audience? So we've got to be a member of the audience as well too.
Well, I think that the speaker on the video, I'm not sure if he was referring to sound in a positive way or a negative way. One of the things that you have to be very cognizant of when you do live sound or any kind of sound is that you want to make sure that the experience is positive in a manner in which the individual doesn't leave the production with the things like, oh, the sound was awful, or I couldn't hear this. And I'm wondering if that's what he really meant about that statement about you should not walk away thinking about the sound. Now, to the other point regarding the implicit, I would actually disagree and say it should be an explicit understanding that the audio engineer is part of the music department. At my client, Alpha Street Baptist Church, the audio team, I'm working directly with the music department, directly with the minister of music, directly with the band director. And the reason is for what you said just now, is that you have to have a symbiotic relationship. You have to have an understanding. And more importantly, you have to have trust. You see, they understand that you are going to try to convey the musical intent that they're actually trying to present. They need to be comfortable that you're actually going to do that. And if they're comfortable, they will be able to do that.
Right.
I think what we're all saying, I think we're all saying the same thing for the most part, is that a lot of this is a culture change. I think for a very long time, there's been an antagonistic relationship between audio engineers and musicians and audio engineers and the congregants and whatnot. And I think we as engineers, I guess we'll have to make the first step is to try to understand how to actually bridge those gaps so that everyone understands that, hey, we're all on the same team here. Our job is to ensure that you have a worship experience that you can actually feel great about, and you want to come back next week and say, hey, I'm looking forward to worship again. I'm looking forward to fellowship again. Because if they feel that, if you can't create that, if you can't build that, and they don't trust you to do that, you're going to always have a problem. As soon as a pin drops in the church, you have the whole whips head spin thing going
mercy,
on,
mercy.
because they don't trust that you know what's going on. So they're looking back at you like, hey, you don't know what you're doing.
What you're doing, right?
And so, yeah, I think that's something that we have, especially in this time of the COVID, where we're literally trying to come up with new and innovative ways to actually disseminate the word.
And other productions as well. So
Yeah.
yes, Houses of Faith, but other productions as well.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
interesting how many other types of concerts and everything have actually gone online, and they're successful in translating that live experience to an online experience. I mean, it's live is still better. Everybody knows that. But in this time where we can't, we're trying to get it as close as we can, and so I agree with you 100%. Man, listen, time is moving quickly. I want to, you know how this thing goes, man. I want to dive into some of your stories, and I have an order in which I wanted to share the stories, but I might come up off that order. Unless is there somebody who just has one that's burning? It's like, yeah, I want to tell my story. If we have that happening here, then let's dive into that. If not, then I've got queued up, Evert. I've got your clip queued up first, and we'll just run that through, and then you can tell us some of the story behind what we're seeing on screen. These are for our audience. These are clips. These are pictures, stills. Some are video clips of different production programs that Evert has been involved in, and so he'll tell us some of the story behind that once the clip is finished. All right. Talk to us, Evert. Give us some background. Go ahead.
Most of the pictures there that you saw, some were of the Miracle Temple, Miracle City Christmas cantata. They had that running for about 25 years. Was heavily involved in that. I have some war stories I could get into, but for lack of time, we're just gonna say. I mean, at most you had strings, horns, in a very tight area, so I had to rely on my vendor Marlon to get me the right tools needed to be able to replicate the sound of the orchestra and the choir for everyone's enjoyment. Some of the other stuff that you saw there was involved last year with the Anthony Brown last stop on his tour. Was contracted through MRD to help provide a backline. So I had to drive a fully loaded truck up to New York, find my way in through New York, the New York streets, offload, set up. And when we're talking about a small window, we're talking about a small window to set up tech drums. And listen, I'm doing this by myself, set up keyboards and, tie everything into the house system. And the good thing is there was communication between myself and the technical director for the band that made it seamless, because as they got there, they kind of jumped in and helped because they knew how they liked things, and then they relayed certain things back to me. But it was a pleasure to be able to experience that. That was my first event where I was responsible for setting up and teching and tuning drums. So I think it went off without a hitch. Pat myself on the back for that one. So
nice. We're gonna come back to you. I want you to talk to the audience a little bit, if we have time, about that process and what it entails. Next up we have Trey Calhoun. This is a song that he did drums on, and you said you did the recording. Am I correct?
Yes, I recorded the live drums for the track. I also mixed the drums for the artist that the artist that I play for, Alex Banks, the second. He had an idea to, put out some inspiration to go along with the COVID-19. At the time, Bill Withers had passed, but he wanted to bring his live show to studio, kind of a studio meets live.
Kind of,
yeah.
A lot of that going around right now, yeah.
Right, and so actually what was supposed to be a video ended up just being a session of most of the band just recording, because it was so good that everybody was just like, man, let's just put it out. And so,
all right, let's take this is a small clip of it, but I believe the drum solo is in here. Yes, indeed. Yes, and so I know you talked about it a little bit already, but just give us a little more of the technical process behind what you had to do to get that done.
Yeah, so definitely, I just came in the studio, my home studio, and got the session from Alex and went through everything, all my drums, snares, top and bottom, to make sure I had an even level of everything so that nothing stands out more than the other. Added a little bit of reverb. I didn't have to do much because, I definitely agree with Evert. When you have to be a tech, your drums have to be flawless because it affects the mix that's going out in the house. Right. And then the first thing that the band is going to say is, that sounds bad in my ears. So I definitely wanted to make sure I brought live to studio, but at the same time, it still maintained that live intensity. Right. But other than that, man, it was just that, me and Pro Tools, and sent it out.
Nice, man. We appreciate that. Next up, I've got a clip from Marlon. Now, again, these are pictures that I put together, and I know it's a lot, Marlon. I know it's a lot there, but just pick one piece of it that you can share with us, kind of the background story of. Yes, indeed, sir.
Well, I think I would probably speak on the the Alpha Street Baptist Church Easter program. That's the one you see in the big arena.
Mm-hmm.
That was Easter of last year. It's that particular production is really near and dear to my heart because that was the first time the church ever did an Easter production outside of the sanctuary, and definitely at that size. It's actually my largest church-based production. Had about 5,000 people in that room, and what made it, and I think the input count for that show was 101. I think 101 channels, somewhere around there, and we were able to, we had a 200 voice choir, we had a gospel band, we had a full orchestra, we had vocals and all those other things, and it was a really great experience for me, mostly because the church trusted. You don't see many of us doing productions that are more than speaker and a stick. Okay. So it was a really great opportunity. I really felt very proud of the fact that the church trusted me to put together a production like this. We had 42 line array boxes flown in the air and 12 subs, three mixing boards, front of house monitors and broadcast. And it was a great experience. And I'm looking forward to doing another one like that again. I can't really get into the mechanics of the production because it was so much.
I hear you.
I spent 3 months planning this one out. Yeah.
Man, but yeah, we're really hopeful that we will be able to meet like that again, if COVID ever decides to go away. Mario, we're gonna play. I'm gonna play the last clip that you sent me, which is what was the name of the series, the TV series?
Oh, Messiah Wars.
From Messiah Wars, and just to set it up for them, what they're going to see is a clip from that episode, and you did the score.
I did the score. Yeah.
You did the score. Okay, so let's dive in. Yes, ma'am.
Still waiting, ISO. I've been here 20 minutes.
Definitely should have been there by now.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That was
cool. Talk to us. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was definitely a different side of me. A lot of people don't know my background. I came from a classically trained background. My bachelor's and master's was actually piano performance and music education. And while in that world, I did a lot of competitions, one of which that sent me to Rome, Italy. I got to debut as a concert pianist. And while doing all of that, I got introduced to the modern world as well, becoming the music director for a few artists going on tour, then getting into production and then getting to start writing music for film and television. And so that particular clip was from Messiah Wars, a series that played on, I believe it was the CW network. And what was fun about it from a sound standpoint was that the director really loved the Dark Knight films. So he really wanted that kind of feel with the score. And sometimes people think about when they're trying to create something or an emotion or a mood that somebody wants, they tend to just think about the instrumentation, which is a big part of it, but also the engineering side of it also can deliver those results for you. Even the types of reverb that you use. Even the way that you EQ your reverb can give you a certain feel. I see a lot of times with reverb, people just have it way too bright. That's not really a natural thing. So I'm not going to get too.
There's at least one witness.
Same with compression. You can't tell too much in that clip, but he really wanted those drums to pop out. And so one technique I like to use to get the detail to come out of things, even with the strings, is something called parallel compression. Parallel compression is an excellent way to get that. A compressor can do more than just squash a transient. We don't necessarily want that. We can also pull out the detail in a sound by using, that type of process. So I was able in that series to not only use my orchestral kind of background, but also to use my technical background to get the feel and the emotion that the director wanted for that particular scene.
Nice. Donnell, wow, we are coming to you. And again, these are kind of a tour of the studio, but then some other pictures from that I pulled from the ARC's page. So
Okay.
let's run this, and then you can pick whatever, and then just give us a couple of stories. Yes. The arc.
I don't even know where to start, but
yeah. I know you don't know where to start, and I apologize for that, because I know I just picked what I like,
Man.
But no, there's a lot there.
I'm going to start with the name, because I think the name is important, because if you understand the name, why we call it the Ark, you'll understand the journey that we have been on as we sailed in the Ark. So when you think about the name Ark, right, there's something that comes to mind.
Yes.
Right? It was about animals going into a place of safety by twos. Okay. The name of the studio was never intended to be the Ark. The name of the studio was going to be a consistent brand to all things that I do related to Jodah, Jodah. So the studio's name started out as Jodah Productions.
I remember that.
Okay. Now I have a 501c3 Jodah Ministries. I have other companies named Jodah. So the studio was going to be an extension of that logic called Jodah Productions. It was 2:30 in the morning, and I was doing my final bit of construction in the vocal booth, and it was as loud as daylight when I was looking at the bill for my last flowing contractor that says, I don't have enough money to pay for this project. And I was like, Father, how am I going to do this? He says, I will send them in twos. That motif of I will send them clients in twos, that moment, I changed the name from Jodah Productions to the Ark, because I wanted to believe and act on my faith that God was going to do what he said. He was going to send them in twos. So when Terrell heard, so we had this guy who was on the season for BET, season finalist, season finalist Terrell, and he came on, he brought his producer along with himself. When Anthony Brown came, it was Anthony and his business manager. And I go down the line.
Right. They came in twos. Yes.
That came in twos, one after the other. And then I began to see the fulfillment of the promise of what Ark really meant. Right. So some of the pictures that you have seen since 2013, right, many of which you have not even seen yet, right, show the journey of growth. So, for example, one of the collages that you had showed my mixing console for my iPad C24, which is what I had as my main brain for the studio for 7 years. Until 2020, I decided to re-architect the studio, and that touchscreen picture that you saw, that is now a fully tactile touchscreen control surface that allows me to do exactly what I was doing in terms of my mixing and my routing and all my engineering things that I did in the studio. So that's one picture that jumps out at me. Another picture that jumps out at me are some of the producers that I've had the privilege of working with. When I think about producers, I think of the greats like Justin Savage, from Anthony Brown, and so many others that he has worked with. Not only I recognize and respect these gentlemen for their artistry, but I respect them for their humility. I respect them for their humility. I remember when Justin came working on Deeper Faith for Dwan Starling back in, this was 2015, I think it might have been. Justin told me two words: there's safety in the Ark. And these are producers who have gone
Wow.
to many studios, but there was something that was different about the atmosphere, what we tried to facilitate in the studio. When Angela Malini, Donnie McClurkin's sister, came through, she said there's an atmosphere of prayer. And what they didn't realize was that my control room is the very space where I get away to pray. So it's no surprise that you sense an atmosphere of prayer in the control room, because that's what I've done. I've bathed the place in prayer. So everything that I've done in terms of not only the construction of the Ark, but being intentional in making sure that everything that I do, every artist that I work with, only does one thing, and that's to bring glory to God. When I think about other instrumentalists and musicians, for example, one of the pictures you saw there was with Barry Black. Now, you may not know that Barry Black is actually a baritone singer. Barry was actually singing in the National Cathedral for a huge production that was being worked on in California, and they needed to do some overdubs. So the producer called me up and says, we have a client that would like to have you do some vocal overdubs. I did not know it was Barry until he showed up. And he came and we bonded. He did the overdubs. And this Senate chaplain is one gentleman to work with. Not only did he pray for me and my enterprises, but he was also able to inspire and motivate me towards excellence. And if you know Senator Chaplain Black well, he does that thing well. He motivates to excellence. When I think about the people on that clip, Mohawns, what can I say about Mohawns? I mean, these are outstanding musicians, from the Andre Crouches, the Kirk Franklins, and many others. Just had the opportunity in working with some of these musicians and some of these producers who I've had the pleasure of working with in my private studio, because it does one thing, as I've said. Everything that we'll do is to try to bring focus, unitary focus, not on skills, not on talent, not on just a product that we put out, but everything got to be done so we glorify the King and the Creator of God, who we serve.
Oh man, powerful. Wow. I'm trying to figure out what do we run with next. There's a couple of comments that have come in, a couple of questions in the comment section that have come in. One in particular, many are just reaffirming what you're saying, they're in agreement, but one in particular is from, I think the name is Ludwig, and this is what they're saying. What are your thoughts about mixing in the box, or mixing with outboard gear, the advantages or disadvantages, limitations of both setups? And so I wanted to throw that to the panel, and then we do have one or two more that we want to see if we can take before we start to wind it down.
I could take a stab at that, since it's referring to in the box, generally a generalized studio term. In the box, when we look at how the digital audio workstation has evolved over the years, and we look at some of the capabilities and limitations of the 1990s and the early 2000s, in the last 10 years, there has been significant improvements, not only in sampling, but modeling. And when we speak about modeling, we are looking at all the acoustical dynamics that are placed within the equipment. So let's say it's a compressor, is taking whether it's the LA2As or whether it's taking the Avalons, and it's taking how each of those components, how those components interact with its circuitry, and model that in computer. And that's just one element. Also, when you look at music production, you think about how they actually use reverbs and convolution reverbs, and how they are able to take space and model space. One company that comes to mind is Universal Audio, and Universal Audio has really done an outstanding job in taking legacy equipment, whether it's EQs, compressors, tube amps, or whatever it is, taking those legacy equipment and modeling them with fidelity and getting certified by those manufacturers. Nice. Because they have done that with fidelity. So I do believe, to answer the gentleman's question, you can be able to create authentic sound using in-the-box tools, plugins, and other types of tools that are available in the box. But I would also dare to say this, though, Kirk, that there's something about the natural nuance of an analog outboard gear that is still very different and difficult to replicate. And why that is possible, why that's the case, is because you don't have sampling in time. You're not taking a particular audio waveform and slicing it and dicing it either 88,000 times a second or 96,000 times a second. You don't have to do that to get aliasing and other types of artifacts in your signal chain.
Wow.
When you do that, when you have a natural acoustical device like a compressor and it's sitting outboard, what you get is a sound that even to this day is difficult. Although Universal Audio and other companies are getting very close, many of these companies are still, perfecting the art. But I still believe that outboard gear at some point sometimes add the sheen to the final mix that sometimes inboard gear, especially when you get to mastering. And I've had the pleasure of working in studio, be mastering in the Carolinas, and when you go to their facility, all outboard gear is the same type that you see modeled by Universal Audio, but they get a certain pristine sound when they're using those outboard gears, and they carefully tune it to this music that's being produced.
Powerful. I see that several others were shaking their heads yes as you were answering. So I think that one was well taken care of. I want to throw another one to you. Some of the technical questions that we got in the Facebook community group. And here's one of them. How has the computer and the modern DAW changed the landscape of audio engineering? Anybody want to touch that one?
I want to throw one thing out with that one a little bit. I'm going to go on the other side of it because it's obvious that it's given us great capability and great tools. But I think also it's somewhat handicapped us just a little bit because people have this philosophy and this mindset of, I'll just fix it in the mix or I'll fix it later versus trying to get the best recorded source first.
Right.
I used to be one of those guys like, you're a little off pitch, don't worry about it. I'll just pull out Melodyne or Auto-Tune or something like that. We'll take care of that later. Oh, you messed up that word, we'll fix it. And then the older I got and the more I did it, the more I started to realize, no, let's try to get it right. And then use these tools that we have to enhance what you've already done. So I'm going to keep my answer short. That's just where I'm coming from on it.
I like it, though. I like it. Yeah. Did anybody else want to touch that one?
I want to say one thing, but I'm going to keep it short. Not because someone can buy a DAW means that they understand what the DAW can do. Okay.
Right.
And everyone going out buying a mic and a preamp does not make it a studio. And we have to get to the point in investing time to learn the gear that we have, because many a time you can always be chasing the latest and greatest when you have in your arsenal the tools that can do the job, and sometimes even better than what you want to go and buy.
Right.
Wow.
That's a plug for Maitland Conservatory right there. So if you're going to learn, we can teach you that.
The education side is real.
There
man.
it is. Come on, we'll teach you.
Listen, one of the things I wanted to touch on from earlier, several of you talked about the importance of the room, whether it be a studio like where you are at the Arc, Donnell, or like what you had to set up there at the auditorium, Marlon, for Alfred Street Baptist. How important is a well-tuned room in a live and studio setting, and why?
I think Marlon should take this one.
I think you might be muted. I'm not certain because we're not hearing you, Marlon.
I keep forgetting I have a mute button on this thing. You can't tune a room in a live setting. That's not possible. What you do is you tune your PA to respond the way it's for it to be efficient and optimized in that particular room. You try to optimize the PA so that what comes in is essentially what comes out and is enjoyed and it's heard by the audience and those in the room.
Mm-hmm.
The most important thing in the live setting is to ensure that what Mario said, you got to get the source right. I go to great pains to make sure I select the correct microphones to put in a particular source. I got a thing for ribbon microphones nowadays in a live setting, which is nearly unheard of. But it brings something to the sound of the instrumentation. Right. The second thing that I will suggest to all individuals who are just starting in audio, you want to go out and they're the most how do I put it? The two things that you must invest in, you really must invest in, is a live person. You have to get a good microphone. You have to get good speakers. Everything it's a digital world now, so everything in the middle it's fine. It's pretty much, you can get an X32 or DL16 or something like that from you're fine there. But the speaker and the microphone are the two least efficient devices in the chain because they're electromechanical. And so you need to really, if you want to invest, that's where I would tell the individuals who are trying to start up, churches who are trying to, start doing audio, to put their money in.
That's perfect. A perfect segue as well, because that the final question for the entire panel, we want everybody to touch this one, is, one piece of advice for aspiring professionals. And I think Marlon touched on that in terms of what he thinks would be the best investment. But I don't know if that was your best piece of your
No, that's not my best piece of advice.
So we're gonna start with Evert and make our way back around to you, Marlon. But yeah,
sure.
One piece of advice, your number one piece of advice. I know you have many, and I think those who have been watching have been responding in the comments. And there's a couple other things that they've expanded on as well, but and I know they're walking away with many nuggets of wisdom from what we've shared in the course of our conversation today. But what is your one piece of advice? There's somebody watching who is thinking, man, this could be, this is an area that I have interest in, and the discussion today has really kind of piqued that interest a little bit. What would your advice be to that person?
To take everything you do seriously. If you're the guy that's assigned to tech cables or wrap cables, learn the correct way to wrap the cable so you don't damage the cable. And then when you get out on a show, you have a broken cable and you're spending hours trying to find where the signal got broken. Always continue to try to educate yourself. Learn from others. Find yourself a mentor. I myself just signed up for a couple webinars from Shure. Last Friday I did one on RF design, and there's another one coming up this Friday. So there's so many resources out there. Keep learning. Try to stay humble. Ask questions when you because you don't always have the answers. There's somebody else that may know a little bit more than you. Try to collaborate with other people, and just keep plugging away.
Good. Donnell.
One word that comes to mind is prepare. For the studio, prepare. Now, preparation can take multiple forms. Be punctual. Prepare to be on time. Be professional. If you're sending stems, if you're sending session files, make sure you have the key signatures, the time signatures, the session files done correctly. Make sure you have a score if you're doing certain types of productions. Just prepare so that when you come to the studio, you are not coming to waste time. Things have been set up so you can execute the way in which that music is intended to be executed.
Nice. That's good, and that's applicable outside of music as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mario.
I would say 3 words: learn, apply, and adjust. I say those because a lot of times people will learn, but they never apply. And so it's great to learn things, but if you don't apply it to anything, then it doesn't really have as much value. And then I add adjust to that, because you have to, when you learn and when you apply, you have to be willing to adjust, because you're not going to get it right every time. You're not going to get it right the first time. Sometimes what worked for one situation may not work for the next. I'm sure Marlon can agree, especially when you're working with rooms, that one room may respond a certain way and another room may respond another. So certain things you did in that other room may work well, but it won't work in the next. So you've got to be willing to learn, apply what you've learned, and then adjust of what you've learned and apply it after that.
Nice. Trey.
I'd say I have to piggyback off what Evert said. Never be afraid to ask questions. You can never know too much about sound because it's constantly changing to where today is one thing, tomorrow is another. So never be afraid to ask questions. And like Donnell said, be on time and prepared, because you never know what kind of situation you're walking into. The power could be down. And now here it is, you got to spend a couple hours either waiting on a utility company or trying to figure out why the power is down. Right. But here it is, you're being on time, but you should have been early.
There you go.
So that's what I would have for you.
That's I appreciate that. Marlon.
Well, I mean, I see a theme in what's been said so far.
Okay.
But I have 4 points. First
Please.
one is be humble. You have to be humble. There, when you're on a live show, there is nothing that is beneath you. You could be the front of house engineer. You better be comfortable getting underneath the stage and taping something down. Listen, and not just listen to the room. Of course, you have to listen to the room, but listen to people. If your keyboard player is saying my ears are hurting, don't just brush him aside. You listen to what he's saying, because he's trying to convey something to you that's important for the production. Practice. And when I say for live engineers, I tell a lot of engineers who are just starting off, get a DAW, get Pro Tools, get anything. Reaper is my thing. And ask an engineer, ask a studio person, call Donnell. Hey, Donnell, do you have some tracks that I can just practice with? Because to be very honest, it's very disrespectful, in my opinion, when an engineer walks into church or walks to a production, and the only time he's touched that mixing board that week is your show. The musician practiced 30, 40 hours to do to know his stuff. The singers practiced. Everybody practiced. Audio engineer walked inside there. He's not prepared. He didn't do his pre-show files. Didn't do anything. He just wants to come in there and just mix. That's just disrespectful.
Wow.
And that ties into my last point. Prepare. Which has been said by just pretty much everyone. But preparation is key. I mean, you could ask Evert, the late nights, Evert and Roderick, who's also listening, the late nights we've been in the shop, because I refuse to send a drum set out that doesn't have fresh heads. Because that goes directly towards the tone of the drums. If the drums are not right, the whole band is not right, because it affects the performance. Excuse me, I'm getting excited. It affects the performance, and it affects the overall vibe. So those are the 4 things I would say.
Those are phenomenal. Those are great. I'm moving toward the plug your hustle section, but I wanted to. There's a couple of questions in the comments that I wanted to just see if anybody could just address them very quickly. Let me see here. Have you advertised your brands amongst how have you advertised your brands amongst churches or Christian artists? And then somebody added to that to say, if you do advertise, how, in your opinion, is the best way to do it? Those are just some comments that we have coming in. I don't know if anybody wanted to touch that real quick.
I would say go where people are.
Go where people are.
Go where people are. For example, I've had a website for our recording studio, which I've actually repurposed to use social media instead of my website, because more people are going to social media to find recording services these days. So I've repurposed my Arc Recording Studio Facebook page, which could be found at facebook.com/Arc Recording Studio. And that alone allows me to present not only the clients that I've worked with, but allows others to have a virtual tour of the facility as well.
Okay, that's good. We're going to move quickly. I just have 1 or 2 more that I wanted to drop in here. Denise Josiah is asking, what should a reasonable action response time for on-the-fly changes in a live setting be? What would be reasonable action time, for on-the-fly changes? On-the-fly changes to me sound like these are par for the course, especially in a live setting. But what's a reasonable response time? What do you think? What are you saying, guys?
That's hard. That's a hard one to answer, because it really just depends on the situation. Well, one thing I can do is, I think we all can agree, to help us with our response time is if the audience kind of leaves us to do that, to respond. I'm sure. I know nobody really wants to say that, but we've all experienced that, where everyone is trying to tell you what it is, and all that does is that lengthens the amount of time it takes for you to fix it. So that might be a one way of attacking that question.
I also think that part of the question, and I know Marlon is going to jump in on this as well, I think there's a subtext to the question. And I think the subtext kind of speaks what Marlon said before. Listen actively to your musicians, your artists, because when they are saying something, they're not necessarily intending on complaining, whining, or creating just a negative vibe, right? I think sometimes artists feel ignored. And to avoid them being ignored or feeling ignored, I think, to Denise's question, at least acknowledge the request that's coming in. So at least you process what's being asked. You may not be able to execute on it right away, but
right.
just acknowledging it alone tells that person, I hear you, I'm getting to it.
Yes.
That's good. Did you want to touch that, Marlon? I just have one more. I think you're still muted, but I think you said that's fine.
Yeah.
This is I think one of our final ones. It's from Ludwig again. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name, but he's asking, how do you choose what mic and by extension preamp to put on a vocal or instrument?
I can take a step at that. This is for me important for a studio environment, because the mic that I would use on a vocal singer who's a tenor would be very different than what I use on an alto. I generally use Neumann microphones, whether I'm cutting sopranos or altos, but I may use a ribbon if I'm working on a guitarist, or I may use so mic selection is very important. So how do you choose a microphone? Understand resonant frequencies and fundamental frequencies of the instrument or talent that you're capturing. Right. Once you understand that frequency range that you're working in, then you can then look at the frequency charts for that microphone to see which of those microphones best reproduces that particular art or instrument. For example, if you're recording violin, well, are you recording first violin, second violin? Are you recording a cello? Are you recording... So you have to match the instrument with one word, the fundamental frequency of that instrument. Yes. Same thing for a singer as well. A mezzo-soprano or classical soprano, their range may be very wide, but you have to be able to capture the intent of that singer and not squash it with the microphone.
Yeah.
For what I generally tend to use for my lead vocal mics, I would use a tube-based microphone that also have FET properties, because then I can make it an FET mic if I wanted to, or if I need to make it warm, I can make it a tube microphone as well. So matching the talent to the microphone is going to be really important.
I will add one thing to that also, or two things. I think was it you, Donnell, that mentioned know your gear?
Yes, sir.
If you know your gear, you would understand how best to select a microphone for a particular application. Yeah. And I think another thing also to touch on that is not only selecting the right microphone, but also ensuring you have the right placement. Placement sometimes is even more important than microphones. Especially like
placement. Wow.
I talk about my good friend, the drums, your drum mic placement could make or break you. If you don't have that snare mic positioned right, that's the difference between a muddy snare and a snare that's cracking. Same thing with a guitar amp. If you have the mic off center, if you want it off axis, on axis, all those things make a difference in terms of the tonality and what you're trying to capture.
Wow. Folks, the time has far spent, and I want to give each person an opportunity to kind of just plug what it is they're doing. There are people, I think the question when they were talking about how do you advertise your brand and advertise what you're doing, one of the things that they, as a follow-up to that was, how do we follow these people? How do we get in touch with our panelists after the fact? And so we're gonna start from Evert and make our way around to Marlon, and just kind of take a moment to say, this is where you can find me. I know a lot of your handles are on the screen already, so that does help for those who are watching to be able to reach out and to follow you and to see, to get, I guess, a continuation of this kind of content that you have been sharing with us today, but also if there is partnership opportunities available, that's what this is all about. So in this section, I like to call it plug your hustle, plug your thing, plug your business. We're going to start with Evert and make our way around.
Sure. You can find me on Facebook. Probably be the best way to contact me. I also have a IG page, VI Native Sons. You can hit me up on that also. Or if you know somebody that knows somebody, they can get in contact with me, and I'm sure to get back with you and try to work with you and help you achieve whatever goals you have in mind.
Yeah. Sorry, just to interject, one other thing that was asked was, are any of you open to doing mentorships or anything in that vein? So just mention that as we go around as well. Okay.
So I guess I'm next. So yes. Recording Studio, we are on Facebook. So our Facebook handle is ARC Recording Studio, and that's ARK Recording Studio. We also have a website as well, arcrecordingstudio.com. We specialize in Christian music production and recording, and we are able to do from soup to nuts, from conceptualization all the way to delivery, including mixing and mastering services as well, although we do partner with mixing engineers all over the country. So that's really what we do. You can reach me at email as well if you need to send me information at Donnell at arcrecordingstudio.com. I'm also on Instagram as well, and my handle there is Donnell Josiah. Looking forward to work with you. I'm looking forward to connecting with you so
Yes.
we can some music.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, you can follow us on Instagram at Maitland Conservatory. Also on Facebook, you can find us at Maitland Conservatory, just like that, or you can follow me, Mario Maitland, on there as well too. We definitely have internship possibilities available. Make sure to follow us. We have lots of programming that's coming up, especially our new live track programming, which is going to include live engineering. It's going to include musical direction. It's going to include lighting, training, and everything like that. But the beautiful thing about it's in direct collaboration and partnership with Huntsville Venue Group, who is actually over the new amphitheater that's coming to Huntsville.
Yes.
So we are literally tasked with workforce development for venues and for different things and opportunities that are coming up. So a lot of our programming is going to be able to provide those outlets for aspiring engineers, aspiring professionals, so on and so forth, to be able to get a job, to be able to work with other professionals as well too. So make sure to follow us to see when all of that is available.
Mario, can you take one more second to mention the panel that the
board
that you have recently been appointed to as well?
Yes, in January, I was appointed to the Music Advisory Board for the city of Huntsville. So we are the first in the U.S. to have a music advisory board of this type. It's all in response to the sound diplomacy music audit that the city hired to create a music city out of this city. So the city has poured and invested thousands of dollars into investing in the arts, creating jobs for the arts, creating venues, creating opportunities for artists. And so I'm honored and blessed to be a part of this advisory board for the city, for the arts, for arts advocacy, for music advocacy, and bringing awareness to these types of jobs and topics that we're talking about.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Excellent. Trey.
You can catch me on Instagram, Trey Calhoun, Facebook, Trey Calhoun, or LDB Trey.
Yeah.
My email is ldbtre@gmail.com. And also, I do a lot of work with Maitland, with Mario Maitland. You can, if you ever need me, you can also reach me through the conservatory as well.
All right. Perfect. Marlon, talk to us.
Yes. So you can follow us on MRD Sound on Instagram and also on Facebook at MRD Sound. If you need, we also have a webpage, mrdsound.com. And also you can email me at info@mrdsound.com. And in terms of internships, I will say this, and I'm seeing my buddy Marcus is actually commenting. He's probably trying to remind me of something. We are actually, I know MRD Sound is actually really trying to find some young women, young ladies who actually want to get involved in professional audio. There aren't many women in professional audio, especially in the church scene.
Yes.
And I think it's high time we actually try to invest in them.
Yes.
So, if you are a young lady, you want to get into audio engineering, mix engineering, or live engineering, just drop us a line, and we can definitely put you in touch with individuals who can actually try to help grow you. Mm-hmm. If you can go on soundgirls.org. That's a webpage that's dedicated to women in the professional audio engineering arts, and let's try to bring some more diversity to our craft.
I like it. I have to tell you, I did make a valiant. I made an attempt to find a female to join this panel, and definitely was not successful in that. But it is definitely an area that we need some concerted effort to make sure that we are balancing that out. I want to say a word right before we close it out to remind everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur accepting payments on Cash App, an LLC small business looking to expand, or a large company hoping to maintain relevance, you're going to need the big three: social media, PR, and branding. No matter the industry discipline or niche, social media, public relations, and branding are a huge deal. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out how it all works live next week, right here, same time, Monday, July 20th, 5:30 p.m. CST, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our panel, Claudia Allen, Ebony Marks, Amanda Robinson, Edmund Morcell, and Andrea Balogun. And I think we're really going to have a good time with that panel. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Marlon, Trey, Mario, Donnell, Evert, thank you so much for taking time out this afternoon, this evening, to share your considerable years of experience and expertise with our audience, and for taking, literally sharing your craft, pulling back the veil a little bit, allowing folks to see things from the audio engineer's perspective. And I hope that those that have watched now and those who will watch the replay will approach the position with more reverence and with the proper amount of grace, and really seeking to create that cohesion that we talked about in our conversation, because it really is one team, and it all works together to produce what we consume. And that's literally all we're about here on the show, How It All Works. Folks, thank you so much. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Have a great night.